Hello and welcome to the very first of a series of podcast interviews with the authors of the book, More Than Money. I am excited to introduce you to my friend, Shanna Due, and we are starting with Shanna kicking this series off. Even though her chapter begins on page 213, it's called Save a Life if you're following along at home. But the reason I want to start with Shanna is without Shanna, this book would not have happened. You see, when we started this journey as a community, the advisors who signed up to write the book, we needed somebody to lead us. And Shanna quickly raised her hand, didn't think twice about it. So in addition to being a mother and a spouse and a business owner and a financial advisor and a friend and all the things that she does, she now became the lead for a book of 29 financial advisors spread across the globe, trying to hit deadlines, organize us, keep everything moving forward. And she did it effortlessly and flawlessly. So I want to start it off with her because without her, again, the book wouldn't happen and we would not have been published with Harriman House. Our goal was just to set out and self-publish through Amazon, which would have been perfectly fine. The goal was to set out stories of real financial planning, letting the public know what real planning looks like, letting advisors that may not have been exposed to it yet know that there's a better way to help our clients, and ultimately spread a good message. We wanted to raise some funds as well to give to the organizations within our profession, like the BLX internship and the Foundation for Financial Planning, but we just thought we would self-publish. And thanks to Shanna, she got us in front of Harriman House. They liked what they saw the potential, and ultimately picked us up and decided to publish the book for us, which gives us much greater reach, hopefully to raise more awareness, raise more funds for the profession, and take this to a whole new level. Again, without Shanna, that wouldn't happen. So I wanted to give her credit. I wanted to praise her, give her flowers before we get going. Real quick, I'll read you her intro, and then we'll get to this conversation about her chapter in the book again called Save a Life, which starts on page 213 if you're following at home. So Shanna is an accredited financial counselor. She's the co-founder of the Due Collaborative Consulting Group and Due Financial. Whether working through her financial planning clients, consulting through the Due Collaborative, or volunteering in support of her local community and military families, Shanna is committed to seeing individuals use their capital, time, treasure, and talents to create a life focused on making an impact in the world around them. And I love the word impact. She served as a board member, an advisor, seminar leader, and coached hundreds of participants ranging from teens to retirees. Shanna currently lives in Williamsburg, Virginia with her husband, 2 children, and rescue pup. In her free time, you can find her on the sidelines cheering on her children. I know how that goes. Searching for a hidden mountain lake, or reading a book on her latest obsession. So, friends, let's enjoy this first episode. Be sure to continue listening so you hear all of the authors talk about their chapters. But let's get into this conversation with Shanna. Shanna, thank you again for making this book happen. We all appreciate you, and we know that it would not be what it is today without you. Enjoy this conversation. How many years have you been in the profession?
I have been specifically in this aspect of the profession for about 6 to 7 years, but I'm a career transitioner and my other careers kind of prepped me to get here, or all roads led to this once I finally figured out what that was. So yeah, about 6 or 7 years.
In those 6 or 7 years, hundreds, if not thousands of encounters with clients, different scenarios, different stories. What was it about this particular story that you decided to write for the book?
They said save a life. Like, how do you not write about that? Like, in my previous firm, most of my clients, well, all of my clients were young professionals in typically nonprofit space, civil servants in a service place. So a lot of them said, we want to save money, we want to give back, we want to have a life of purpose. But when these 2 clients came to me and said they want to save a life, and not only did they want to save that life, but then as we started going through the process of learning that they would have to take significant risks to do that, financial risks anyway, they were still all in. Like, they were still willing to do it. And then when they found out that some of those worst case scenarios we had planned for actually happened, they still wanted to do it. Like, how do you not write about that? Like, that's like the coolest thing in the world when someone says they want to save a life, and even in the face of adversity, they're still willing to do it. Like, how do you not write? It's awesome. Like, they're the coolest. Like, they're great.
So, as an advisor, what did you learn about that? What did you learn through that experience that maybe you'd never seen before, whether it be tactical or just, inspirational?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough question. I learned so much dealing with this couple. First of all, they just they have a love between the two of them, and their lives had kind of had some adversity getting there and then finding each other. And then as we work together, I mean, I write about this one particular part in the book, but through our time and working together, they had various times where just the love that they had to support each other, and then how all roads kind of come back to the financial piece, right? Like, it's really hard for me, and you know this as well, Justin, it's hard to find any aspect of your life that money doesn't touch in some way, like, or how we use our money affects everything we do, whether we want to spend more time outside, more time with our spiritual lives or our family. There's a money component to that. And watching this couple work through that together, and they came from different backgrounds before they found each other, and how to assimilate that, and to take some of those divergent attitudes they had and bring those together and work through that. And some of the deeper, like one of the clients I write about in the book had very much grown up economically challenged, and there was always uncertainty about money in his home, where for the other one, that wasn't always the case. And so how that manifests as adults and how they spend money, just watching them work through that was, I mean, again, they're just remarkable. And it was not just fun, but so educational to see them actually do it.
So I'm going to ask a question that puts me at risk of having something I believe very strongly in challenged, but that's fair because what I believe isn't right for everybody. But in addressing this planning goal and the money issues they've had that you've worked with them, do you think they were able to come to reaching success in their plan by focusing on the finance part first, or was it the other things, the values and the life things first? So meaning, was it the answer all money, or did it help for them to be on the same page with each other, have similar values, know what their values are, and align all of those things first, and then the money decisions became a lot easier?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we sat down to really talk about what was important to them and what they wanted to do, like in bigger schemes, like in bigger context. Because when they first said to me, I mean, it literally came out in one of our meetings when we were talking about, like, what do you want to do with your money, retirement, buy a house, all those things. And I make light of that right now. And it's not, those are all very important things, but those are things you and I hear every day, right? Like when our clients come to us, I want to make sure I have enough money to retire, I want to buy a house, etc. But when they said, I want to save a life, and we got it really digging into what does that mean exactly, having that just became a much broader conversation too of everything else they wanted in their life, not just this one thing, and how would that affect every aspect of their life? Because part of it, I don't want to give away too much, but part was like, do they want to adopt and actually raise a child? Well, what does that mean to the rest of their lives if they do that? And are they ready to do that? So I think, and I stand firm behind this, and I know you said it, our decisions and how we feel isn't always great for our clients, but I do. And in my practice, I work really hard with clients. Let's figure out what our values are. And I'm agnostic. Like, if you want to build the best ceramic turtle collection you can build, totally cool with that. You want to spend every penny you have, I don't know, going to see every baseball stadium in the United States, I'm totally cool with that too. But I just want to make sure we're intentional about it, because then the money will figure itself out. Like, and as you and I both know, Stephanie Bogan always says, when your vision is clear, your decisions are easy. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that. Not like easy to implement, but it's just so much when you know what you really, really want and you're intentional about it, every decision becomes easy. Like, you know that in our businesses, like, if I want to do this, do I do this? Does this get me to this? Well, no, then I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not. If I want to go visit every baseball stadium, I'm not going to go visit, I'm not going to go to Antarctica next week. Like, it's just easy. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's perfect. And what you're saying can be summarized in some regards to, like, the whole process. It's more than money. Like, that's why the book title is genius. And I've not mentioned yet. I did on the intro, but in case somebody skipped to the intro, Shanna's chapter begins on 213, and it is called Save a Life. So as you're following along at home, page 213 is where you can read Shanna's chapter. But there's a lot in there, and one of the questions I have, I don't want an answer because it'll take us down a path we don't have time for. But how did you come up with the example of a ceramic turtle collection? So we'll circle back on that some other time. I think that's a very specific example that there's got to be more to it. But this is about your chapter, not about turtles. So what's without giving away too much, and you've given a good highlight of what the chapter is about, what's the main message? So you've given a little bit about why you chose it, but is there a main message you hope readers and listeners come away with?
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about of how it is so vitally important to be intentional about what we're doing. I mean, you and I have talked about this before of we only have finite resources, right? Like if we only have so much time, like, and we don't actually, and the really sad part about it is we don't know how much time. Like being financial planners, it's kind of advantageous because we know how much income we have to deal with typically. I mean, or at least within the near future. We may not know future, but when it comes to time being that finite resource, our energy, our focus, and of course our money, being intentional on how we use those is so important. And so, yeah, for me, it really kind of goes back to that. And that's one reason why I chose this story and I chose these people, because that's what they're doing. Like, they're taking those finite resources and putting it back into what they think is really, truly important. And they're willing to make, there's an opportunity cost for that. And they were willing to do that.
And when you understand what you value the most, those opportunity costs become a lot easier than Absolutely. If you did. And I think when you focus the conversation on the fact that we only have limited time and limited energy, and with that time and energy, what do you really want to do? That's where the conversation moves away from retirement and buying a house and college. And to your point, those are very important goals along the journey. But I think that we've been told that those are the things you have to focus on, and don't think about everything else through life. And obviously, as we focus on your energy and the values, those things will come up in conversation. But I think focusing on those other things are more important as you move along, trying to get to retirement, those other things, because retirement's going to come. And while you plan for saving a life or the other things as well, you're able to still address that long-term goal, but live today and enjoy today, because what if that long-term goal isn't meant to be? And unfortunately, the longer you stay in this profession as a financial advisor, you see that, whether it be an early death or illnesses that make retirement not what you thought it was. So I think it's a fine line. I think it's great to have advisors like you that are encouraging clients to plan for the things that you want to do today while being responsible and also addressing the long term, because you don't want to be in bad shape in the future because you did everything today, but you also don't want to do nothing today and never get a chance in the future. So it is a balance, which is where I think a real financial advisor, and there's a lot of stories in the book, can help clients do that. So that is not what I think the stereotype of us as financial advisors is. I think the stereotype is it's sales, it's insurance, it's a laundry list of things that aren't the most trustworthy as far as reputations for financial advisors. And I will admit our profession has earned it rightly. But there are a lot of advisors like you, like the AGC, who are doing things the right way, changing the way the profession looks and moving it one step forward. You have an opportunity to get on a soapbox real quick, and you can bust up one misconception about financial advisors. What would that be?
Oh, just one. I think the biggest one is kind of the whole point of the book, which is it's more than just money. It is more than just dollars and cents and these rules of thumb that we put out on all the major blog posts, and some are better than others. And if you have nothing else to go by, rules of thumb are, it's a rule of thumb. Like everyone, you can live by that. But so much of what I consider real financial life planning goes it is more than money. It's every family that I talk to is different, and how we can make the money work for them is really what we do. And along that lines, it's not about me giving anyone permission or denying anyone. I mean, just like when these clients came to me and said, we want to save a life, it wasn't my job to give them permission to do that or to deny them to do that. It was my job to help them figure that out and to figure out if that was the best thing to do for them. So it's really just about empowering and giving them the autonomy to figure that out, because it's always uncertain. We don't know what's coming. None of us do. And it's just unknowing. So giving them the power to do that beyond just what does your investment portfolio look like today, which, is the best product for you, whether that's a fund or an insurance or an app, or it's so much more than that. And I think that most people don't understand that that's good, really good financial planners will look at far beyond that. And as much as, I have friends in that side of the industry, and they're wonderful people, but they're locked into what they have. They're locked into their product. They're locked into their bank. They're locked into their line, where there's this whole world out there, and there's so many other things besides just that product and the investment portfolio. There's a diagram out there that it as well as I do. It has a big circle, and it's just this tiny little portion, a tiny little slice of the pie is investments. Mm-hmm. And then there's all the rest. And that's where the good stuff is. I know you can't tell, but that's the part I get excited about. That's the good stuff. That's why I'm not a CFA. I'll leave it to the CFAs for that other stuff.
Well, the good thing about you highlighting that, the book highlighting that is twofold. First, I think that's the intended audience of our book initially was, let's say, consumers. I don't really like that term, but non-financial advisors, people who would work with an advisor, mm-hmm. to know that there are advisors who are looking to do more than just this stereotypical stuff. And if all you want is stereotypical, there's a lot of advisors who will handle that for you, and no problem. But if you're looking for more and you didn't even know that was an option, you're going to hear from 29 other advisors that are telling you this is an option and this is what we think you should be seeking for. It will lead to a more fulfilling life, achieving the goals that you have all along the way, and ultimately helping you realize that the finances, the finance part of it, it doesn't always take care of itself, but it tends to fall into place when you know everything else. Meaning, what you need to do and make those changes if that's what it needs to be done, and it becomes easier because there's something so important over here that you're willing to do that. When you don't know, I think that's when it's harder. If you don't have if you don't have something that you're passionate about, like you are for this side of the profession, then you're off doing all these other things. But if you know what it is that you really care about the most, then it's easier to hone in on that and get rid of all the other stuff. So for the consumers, but also for financial advisors, I wasn't always on the independent side, and I grew up in different channels, and you don't know what you don't know, because those managers and those other channels aren't telling you about these other ways to do things. And the corporations you might work for don't necessarily want you doing all these other things because it's not best for their bottom line. And that's not to say one way is better than the other, because I think I did a good job for my clients at those other stops. But there's a lot of advisors who would love to do this if they even knew it existed. And not every advisor knows that it exists. So that's why I love the book, that it goes to both audiences, which will hopefully help us sell a whole lot so we can give a lot of money back to the profession. But I think one of the cool things about this as well through these conversations is people getting the opportunity to see advisors from a human side, not just number crunchers and robots that say yes, no, but that we are human beings and that we have our own stories as well. And I think it's kind of fun to share, some of the things we've learned from money ourselves as professionals. So what would you say is the best financial decision that you've made?
I love this question, because normally it's what's the worst thing you've ever done. And I have a laundry list of bad financial decisions. So I love this one because my money journey has been long and the best one I probably made, and I talk about this with my clients too, especially if they come to me before they choose someone, like when I get to work with young singles, is who I chose to intertwine my life with, which ultimately means my financial life. I mean, and there are studies that show this, the number one predictor of financial success. Now we can talk about what defines financial success, but is who you choose to spend your life with. And for me, my husband rocks. He's amazing. And part of that is for so many reasons, but our financial life together has been full of uncertainty at times. And again, it's been ebbs and flows, and we've made mistakes, but we've been there through the whole thing. And our approach to how we deal with that uncomfortableness and that uncertainty, and then how we work through and we sit down, we talk about what do we really want and what's really important to us, which I mean, I just alluded to that. Like, I handle most of the money stuff in our house because we were a military family up until recently when he retired. He was gone a lot. Like, he went on deployments and he just wasn't here to pay bills. I mean, the actual physical thing, he wasn't here to pay bills. So I took care of a lot of it. And one thing he told me early on in our marriage was, I just want to be able to buy books. Like, that's all I want to be able to do in life. I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to work on a little bit more than that. But like, I don't know. It's, who you choose is so important. So that was probably one of the best decisions I made along the way. Like,
I think there's an opportunity for a lot of great content to help people have those conversations. Like that's a weird way to look at like when you're dating, especially if you meet your spouse like early on in life. Like I met Ange when we were seniors in college. So to be as a senior of college who doesn't even have my own money behavior yet, to be thinking about, well, how does she view money? And but it is true. It's very important. And you're not the first person to say that on the podcast series. So multiple advisors have said for the very same reason. So it'd be interesting to figure out, without making dating superficial about like how much money do you have, more along the lines of, how do you handle money? What are your views? And just like, let's make sure we're on the same page and that we can complement each other if need be, to help out with money rather than cause money problems. But I don't know how you bring that up, and I don't want to figure it out. But
well, there are people out there who have, and there's a study out there that they did marriage success, like rates of divorce or like significant partnerships that have not lasted, and credit scores. And there's a correlation. Doesn't mean like the correlation, I think, someone will correct me in the comments, I'm sure, but essentially similar credit scores have a better chance. It's a predictor of longevity. So you both have horrible credit scores or you both have really good ones, but that's a predictor. Which, I mean, again, we could discuss how important credit scores are or aren't and how ridiculous they are or not. Oh, just gave away my position on them. But I think it's maybe like you and Ange didn't necessarily know how you felt about every financial decision you were going to make. But I think it is really important to sit down and have some of those conversations. Like a big one I used to see in my practice sometimes before was how you deal with aging parents. Like, what are your philosophies there? Because that's all great when you're, 21 and your parents are, in their 40s or 50s, everything's great. But then once a parent gets sick, like I had one client who was like, oh, well, dad's going to come live with us. And we were in a meeting, like one of our quarterly meetings, just talking about how are things going. And, oh, well, dad's going to come live with us. And I just watched the wife go, what? And in his family and his culture, that's just what happens. And it was just like we had just taken the entire world out from under her. It's important. And it doesn't know that you'll actually have all that figured out. Like, just wait until your boys get a little bit older and you start talking about like how much you're going to spend for travel basketball. Like,
we're already there. So all that, we already know. Yep.
Like, these are some of the other big ones that I would see amongst couples when those kids start getting older, and it's like, yeah, of course they're going to play on the best travel team and the best equipment, and the other spouse is like, no, we're like doing music. Anyway, it's a tangent, but yeah.
Oh, it's perfect. So the question you didn't know that will be coming is the flip side of that coin, the one that you said you're glad I didn't ask, but I have a better way to ask it. So rather than ask what is your worst decision, because I feel like that brings on shame, and I don't want to promote money shaming, what is the financial decision that you made that taught you the best lesson? And usually we learn our best lessons not from the good decisions we make, but the ones that we kind of wish we could take back. So what would be a lesson you learned from a less than optimal financial decision?
Well, I'm totally with you. There's no shame. Most of us who considered we made less than ideal financial decisions didn't go out and do it intentionally. And most of us didn't know at the time we were making a bad decision, right? So there is no shame in what you've done in the past. It's how you got to where you are. And we have to look at it. We can't just sweep it under the rug because there's probably a reason that you made that decision. And maybe it was the best decision at the time. So one of the biggest learning opportunities, because that's what we call them, they're not mistakes, they're learning opportunities. One of the big ones that my husband and I had about halfway, I mean, we've been married for decades now, but about halfway through was we bought a house. And just due to circumstances, it was a military move, the market, the timing, we bought a little bit more house than probably what we should have at the time. And then because it was military, we got orders to move sooner than what we had hoped. Couldn't sell the house as fast as we had wanted. Tried to, I mean, I'll save you the whole long story, but essentially this house cost us tens of thousands of dollars through having to pay a mortgage, and it was a new construction. And I just didn't know. I was a brand new homeowner. It was the first time I'd owned a house. I didn't know about having to do landscaping and window treatments and all the things that when you're a renter for decades, you just move in and you're like, oh, wow, like everything's here I need. And then you buy a brand new construction house. So it cost us, I mean, everything I'd say for the kids' college was gone within a year and a half because of this house purchase. And so it was a huge learning opportunity. It's all going to work out. It's all going to be fine. But yeah, we lost a ton of money.
You recovered. And that's one of the things, again, as this is being the first episode I'm going to release, you're going to hear stories from every other advisor, same question. And while there are financial mistakes that some people make that maybe you can't recover from, the majority of them are ones that you recover from and you learn and you don't make that mistake, and it saves you from a more costly mistake down the road. So in the moment, it doesn't seem like a learning lesson and it sucks, but you'll be able to recover. Again, there's outliers, but the majority of the time, you recover from it and you move forward and you still are able to reach your goals. Maybe it takes a little bit longer or maybe take a different path, but it doesn't, if you make a money mistake, it doesn't mean that you're doomed financially going forward. Unless you don't learn from it and you keep on doing it, but that's a different story.
Yeah. I will say too, like, a plug for like our industry, because I do have a lot of faith in it, obviously. But one thing that did help us recover, and one thing that really helped me to learn that it was a learning experience, and that, I mean, in that moment, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been there, Justin, but in that moment, I was writing a check every month, just watching bank balances and we had worked so hard to build those up. And there's this, I mean, that goes into a whole nother podcast on money histories and stuff, but I had watched these balances grow and I'd never seen that in my life. And then for what had taken us a decade to build, I was just every month just writing checks. And it was so demoralizing and like, I still get kind of worked up about it, but hiring a professional, even when I was like, we don't have the money. I mean, we are literally hemorrhaging money every month, but I need someone to help me see the light. And so I did. And just having someone come in and be like, yeah, this really sucks, but it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to take, I mean, I won't go through all the steps, but essentially it was like, we're going to take the hit. It's going to hurt. And then we're going to get you feeling better. And we did. It was like putting a cast on. We did a little physical therapy and, we came back. And then I went on to do something else and I learned from that. But
the cast and physical therapy is a great analogy. Well, as we bring this first episode to an end, I just want to take a moment and thank you because this was a commitment for everybody, but more so for you, as everybody always heard in your intro. Taking the lead on making this book happen, getting us in front of Harriman when we were just planning on self-publishing. This book doesn't happen without you. So I want to first thank you for taking the opportunity and dedicating the time to write your chapter, because that was a commitment. Writing, editing, peer editing, but then wrangling together 29 professionals across the country, doing different things, different time zones, deadlines. Like, this book doesn't happen without you, which is why I'm so happy to see your name on the front. So I just want to thank you for your commitment to the book and making this happen. I also want to thank you for being the advisor that you are, because not only does your story and helping us get this book out move our profession one step forward, but I do believe that every advisor that does the work like you do is making our profession look better. And if one by one more advisors do that, more clients have good experiences, then our profession starts to get a different reputation of more of one that's caring, and it's actually a real profession, not a, this, what is it, because there's different terms and all these other things. So thank you across the board for everything that you have done and you do and you will continue to do, because you're making the AGC better and you're making the profession better. So I just want to say thank you for that and ask you why. Let's leave the why of why did you want to lead the book, because that's a different story. And I do think we will have to do another podcast that's the book podcast, and you and I, maybe Taylor, sit down and kind of talk about it. But what made you want to write the chapter? Why did you want to be the author?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, but it's really I owe you and Taylor and all the authors. It was my privilege, like, to work with this group and to have the opportunity to take this on it's huge. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do it. And when I raised my hand being like, okay, because you really should have probably said no, but that's a whole nother podcast, like you said. So it was very, very selfish of the reason why I wanted to contribute to the book at first. When we first had that very initial meeting after, I was like, should the AGC write a book? And I was like, my curiosity was like, I just want to go and see what it's all about, right? I was just curious. And then I got in the Zoom room and I saw the faces in the room and who was there. I was like, oh, to steal from Hamilton. I was like, I want to be in the room where it's going to happen. Like, it was purely selfish. I just wanted to be in the room where this was going to happen, because I knew, watching all the faces in that room, I mean, having you and Taylor start it, I knew it was going to be something. And then just all the people in that room saying, we want to make an impact. We want to let people know what this profession can really do for people, besides just providing a solution to a small problem. Like, the impact we could have, and then the commitment, and I don't want to let this slide because it is so important with what we wanted to do with the book, is the idea that we could elevate this to a profession, and not only for those who aren't already involved or don't already have planners and see that, but also for those in our profession, to get it to be more diverse and to help more people that aren't already being served. That was huge. I mean, that had me sold, but yeah, it's pretty selfish why I raised my hand to, like, contribute a chapter. And I didn't know that I had anything to contribute. I mean, when I look at the authors that have contributed to this, the amount of experience and professionalism and knowledge they have, like, I was like, I'm a baby in this world. I mean, that was 2 years ago. So I was still new to the profession. I mean, I'm still new to the profession, but compared to, we have the list, the authors, like, they're amazing. And I was like, I'm not sure my story is going to resonate, but I was selfish. I just want to be in the room. I just want to be there with the people.
I'm glad you were selfish. I don't view it as selfish. I view it as smart. You should always surround yourself with people you think are going to bring you up. I think that you don't give yourself enough credit, but that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of imposter syndrome floating around right there. But the book wouldn't be the perfect book that it is without your chapter. You do have something to offer. And I think that no matter how much time we have in this profession, there's always something unique that we bring from our perspective to the table. So regardless of how many years you have your own personal experiences which shape the way you do planning, along with the ones you have with awesome clients like you talked about. You totally had something to bring to the table, and the book wouldn't be perfect. It would have been good, but the book would have been perfect, because I believe the universe brings everything together the way it needs to be for that thing, and this book needed your chapter. It needed you in it, and it needed you to lead it. So I think you were where you're supposed to be. So thank you. All right, well, I'm going to bring this to an end. And thank you again, Shanna, for taking the time to come on and talk about it. We'll figure out a time to do a part 2 where we talk about the book and the why of the book and all of that. I think it's a great idea. And everybody watching and listening, thank you for watching and listening. Hopefully you have your copy of your book. Amazon, you can find it. More Than Money. You might want to put More Than Money with my name, because that helps you sort through all the More Than Monies that are out there, because there's a few of them. But go grab your copy, and all of the proceeds from the sales of the book on the AGC side, we want Harriman House to continue to put books out there, so Harriman House gets to keep their side. But our side is not going to Shanna's pocket. It's not going to the community's pocket. It's going to great organizations like the Foundation for Financial Planning, the BLX internship program. It's all going back into the profession to try to move it forward, which I think is really special as well. That just shows that this book was more than money to the authors in that standpoint. It wasn't about making money. It was about getting money to give back to the profession to make it better. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you again, Shanna. And we will see you all in the next episode.
Thank you. Bye, Justin.